Alex woke with a start as the ground beneath him shook. The familiar hum of his ship had vanished, replaced by the cold, eerie wind of a foreign planet. He groaned, trying to move, and realized his leg ached sharply where the landing had been rough. The sky was a deep violet, streaked with green clouds that seemed to shimmer. He had no idea where he was, only that he had survived a crash that would have killed most humans. Pain shot through him. But survival instincts took over. He dragged himself from the wreckage, ignoring the small cuts and bruises that covered his arms. The landscape was unlike anything he had ever seen. Strange glowing plants towered above him, and the ground pulsed faintly, almost as if it were alive. Each step was cautious, as he tried to understand his surroundings and find shelter before night fell. Hours passed. Hunger gnawed at him, but Alex ignored it, focusing instead on movement and staying alert. He had survived hostile planets before, but this world was different. The air was thin and carried a faint metallic taste. Every shadow seemed alive, and distant sounds hinted at unseen predators. He stumbled across a small settlement, abandoned and partly destroyed. With buildings twisted as though a storm had torn through them, his hope flickered. Perhaps he could find food or water here. As he explored, he heard a soft sound, almost like a whisper. He froze. It was faint, but unmistakably a child crying. Alex's heart thumped. He hadn't expected anyone else to survive here, let alone a child. He followed the sound to a crumbled structure, and there, curled in the corner, was a small alien girl. She looked no older than 6, with pale skin that shimmered faintly under the alien light and wide. Glowing eyes that reflected fear and confusion. Alex crouched carefully, holding out a hand. "Hey, I'm not going to hurt you," he said softly. The girl flinched but did not run. She watched him silently, her small chest rising and falling with anxious breaths. "Where are your parents?" he asked gently. The girl shook her head, tears welling in her bright eyes. "Will you be my father?" she whispered, barely audible. The words hit Alex like a jolt of electricity. He blinked. He had expected fear, not something so human in nature. For a moment, he considered leaving. He was alone, injured and stranded. He had no idea how to care for a child, especially one who was not even human. But the pleading in her voice, the sheer trust in her eyes, made the decision impossible. "I'll stay," he said finally, his voice firmer than he felt. He reached out slowly, letting her take his hand. She did, gripping tightly as if afraid he might vanish. They moved cautiously through the settlement, Alex keeping an eye on the strange shadows that flickered in the glowing night. He scouted for anything that could serve as shelter or food. Over the next few hours, Alex learned a little about the girl. Her name was Lyra, and she had been alone since a violent storm destroyed her village and killed her parents. Her words were halting, but she could communicate enough to tell him where danger lurked. Alex felt a protective surge he had never experienced before. He was used to fighting, to surviving, but never to shielding someone so small and fragile. As they moved deeper into the ruined settlement, the ground trembled again. Alex's eyes snapped to a movemented pack of creatures, tall and thin, with sharp limbs and glowing eyes, advancing silently toward them. He grabbed a piece of metal from the rubble and fashioned a crude weapon. "Stay behind me," he instructed, his voice low but commanding. Lyra nodded, gripping his jacket with both hands. The creatures attacked swiftly, their claws tearing through the air. Alex swung his makeshift weapon, hitting one of them squarely. It screeched and fell back, but others closed in. He ducked and rolled, using every bit of his agility and experience to fend them off. Lyra stayed close, mimicking his movements, her small hands clutching a shard of metal she had picked up. Together, they managed to drive the pack away, though Alex was grazed by a claw, leaving a burning scratch across his shoulder. After the attack, Alex collapsed against the wall, breathing heavily. Lyra knelt beside him, her small hand brushing his hair. "Saved me," she said softly, her voice filled with awe. Alex smiled despite the pain. "And you reminded me why I fight," he replied. He realized in that moment that his life had changed forever. He was no longer alone. He had a purpose beyond survival, Keeping Lyra safe, they found temporary shelter in a collapsed building, one of the few structures left mostly intact. Alex used pieces of debris to create a small barrier around them, and they huddled together as the alien night deepened. The wind howled outside, and strange distant sounds of creatures made the air tense. But inside, there was a fragile sense of safety. Lyra curled beside him, whispering again, "Please, don't leave me." Alex's heart tightened. He couldn't. He wouldn't. Not now. As he drifted into a fitful sleep, he thought about the journey ahead. The planet was dangerous, unpredictable, and full of challenges. They would need food, water, and a safer shelter. But more than that, they would need trust and courage. And the bond they had begun to form was stronger than anything he had imagined. Lyra, despite her fear, had already started to change him, showing him a humanity he hadn't realized he could give or receive. In the quiet of the alien night, Alex made a silent promise. No matter what happened, he would protect her. He would teach her, guide her, and stand between her and the dangers of the world. He had survived alone before, but now he understood that survival was not enough. With Lyra, he could be more than a survivor. He could be a protector, a father, and perhaps, in a strange alien world, a new kind of hero. Outside, the shadows shifted. But inside, Alex and Lyra rested, a human and an alien, bound by circumstance and choice. The stars above gleamed faintly through the gaps in the ruined roof. And for the first time since the crash, Alex felt a fragile hope. They were alone in a vast, unknown world, but together, they had a chance. The night stretched long, but Alex stayed awake just enough to listen to Lyra's soft breathing. He was no longer just a man trying to survive. He was a guardian. And in that moment, he knew that walking away had never been an option. Not for her, not for him, not for the bond that had begun to form in the middle of a broken alien world. The wind had died down, leaving the jagged rocks of Kylara glowing faintly under the twin moons. Captain Alex Harper stood near the cave, watching Sira and Luma move about cautiously. The bond they had formed over weeks had grown stronger, yet Alex could sense hesitation in their movements. The mother alien seemed torn between staying near her home and trusting him fully. The little one, full of curiosity, reached toward Alex repeatedly, as if urging him to make a decision. Alex had spent hours that evening preparing. He had brought food, blankets, and small comforts he hoped would make them feel safe near his station. More importantly, he had rehearsed in his mind how he might ask them to stay forever. It was not a simple request. He had no idea how a species like theirs would understand permanence, commitment, or even human intention. But he had to try. He knelt down carefully, placing a small tray of nutrient paste and fruits in front of them. Sarah approached, her eyes wary but soft, while Luma toddled to Alex's side, gripping his leg with tiny, delicate fingers. Alex took a deep breath and spoke in low, calm tones, accompanied by gestures. He pointed to his station, then to the cave, then made a circular motion with his hands to indicate always. He repeated the gestures several times. Watching for any reaction, Sira tilted her head, observing him intently. Her eyes reflected the faint moonlight, and Alex felt as if she was examining not just his words, but his very intentions. Luma, sensing something important, clung closer to his side, tilting its small head as though it understood that this was a moment of decision. After a tense pause, Sira reached out, placing her hand lightly on Alex's. The touch was gentle, deliberate, and full of meaning. He understood it as the closest thing she could offer to agreement over the next days. Alex worked to make their living area near his station suitable for them. He constructed shelters that mirrored aspects of their cave environment, with soft materials for warmth and safety. He added small pools of water and introduced plant life from nearby areas that he knew would be edible. Luma explored cautiously, while Sira tested the boundaries carefully, always keeping a watchful eye on the human and the surroundings. Life began to settle into a new rhythm. Alex continued his duties, but made time for the mother and child, teaching them how to interact with human equipment in simple ways. He showed Sira how to operate a basic air filter and water purifier. and she learned quickly, demonstrating intelligence and adaptability that amazed him. Luma became a constant companion, toddling behind him, exploring and learning. Their presence brought warmth to Alex's otherwise solitary existence, but Kylara was unforgiving. One morning, sensors alerted him to a sudden meteor shower approaching the area. The sky turned red as fragments of rock streaked across the atmosphere. Alex acted quickly, moving Sierra and Luma into the safest shelters he could construct. He barricaded openings with reinforced panels and covered fragile structures with protective layers. The meteors pounded the rocky landscape, sending vibrations through the ground. Sierra clung to Luma, her body tense and protective. Alex stayed by their side, guiding them through the shaking ground, speaking in calm tones despite his own anxiety. One particularly large fragment struck nearby, sending a cloud of dust into the air. Alex shielded the mother and child, using his own body to absorb the force of falling debris. By the time the storm subsided, the shelters were damaged but intact, and everyone was unharmed. The experience left a lasting impression. Sierra and Luma had witnessed Alex's commitment and courage firsthand. They could not speak in human words, but their actions spoke volumes. Sierra pressed close to Alex, her eyes filled with trust and gratitude, while Luma climbed onto his lap, small arms wrapping around his neck. In that moment, Alex felt a profound connection, one that transcended language or species. Days later, as Kylara's winds calmed and the skies cleared, Alex prepared a small gathering near his station. He placed items that represented both their lives: smooth stones from the cave, simple tools, and small plants. He sat with Sierra and Luma, making gestures that indicated choice, safety, and shared life. Slowly, Sierra mimicked his gestures, pointing between him and the station, then circling her hands as he had shown. Luma clapped its small hands in excitement, sensing the meaning before fully understanding it. Alex smiled, feeling a warmth in his chest he had never known. He had not only protected them and fed them, but also created a home where they could belong. The mother alien's acceptance was a silent vow, a promise that she and her child would stay with him, sharing life and survival. It was not a simple agreement, but it was enough. Over the following weeks, their lives became intertwined in ways Alex had never imagined. Sierra learned more about human routines, helping with small repairs around the station, assisting in monitoring sensors, and even helping to prepare food for Luma. The child grew stronger each day, exploring the rocky plains under Alex's watchful eye. Alex marveled at their resilience and intelligence, recognizing that despite their fragility, they possessed a remarkable capacity for adaptation and learning. Evenings were filled with quiet companionship. Alex would sit outside, gazing at the stars, while Luma played nearby and Sierra rested close by. He began to notice subtle gestures, the mother alien touching his hand gently, brushing his arm with delicate fingers, or leaning close when he spoke softly. It was a language of trust, one built on consistent care and mutual understanding. One day, while Alex was repairing a communication relay, a small group of humans arrived in a scouting vessel. They were surprised to see aliens living near the station, and some voiced concern over safety and protocol. Alex calmly explained the situation, showing the bond and trust he had built. Sierra observed cautiously from the side, Luma clinging to her. By the end of the discussion, the humans were convinced that the aliens posed no threat, and that Alex had created a stable and safe environment for them. As the weeks turned into months, Alex, Sierra, and Luma became inseparable. The mother alien began interacting more confidently with human technology, while the child learned to mimic small human gestures, creating its own playful communication. Alex taught them about the basics of the planet's ecosystem, how to recognize safe plants, and how to navigate rocky terrain. In return, they taught him patience, observation, and a new way of understanding life beyond humanity. One quiet night, Alex sat outside, looking at the twin moons of Kylara, reflecting on the distant mountains. Sierra rested beside him, her long arms curled protectively around Luma, who was playing with small rocks. Alex reached out, gently touching the mother alien's hand. She did not pull away. He whispered softly, "You don't have to leave. Stay here with me, forever." Sira's response was slow and deliberate. She placed her other hand over his, then touched Luma's head, a gesture that Alex understood as acceptance. The child squeaked with delight, crawling into his lap and wrapping tiny arms around him. Alex felt a wave of relief and joy, knowing that they had chosen to stay out of fear, but because they trusted him and wanted to be together. From that night onward, their life together became a true family routine. Alex shared his meals with them, taught them human habits, and explored the planet together. They shared quiet moments of wonder, watching the stars, learning about the planet's creatures, and even celebrating small achievements. Like Luma successfully climbing a small hill on its own, Sira showed remarkable intelligence and adaptability, learning to operate simple machinery, communicate through gestures, and even anticipate potential dangers. Alex taught her the basics of human technology, and she seemed to enjoy the learning process. Luma thrived in this environment, curious and playful, always testing boundaries while knowing Alex and Sira were nearby, together. They built a safe haven on Kylara, a place where human ingenuity and alien intelligence could coexist. Alex often reflected on how unexpected this life had become. What started as a simple act of feeding the hungry had grown into a profound interspecies family. He realized that courage, empathy, and persistence had created something extraordinary, something rare in the vast hostile universe. Months later, while sitting outside under a sky filled with stars, Alex watched Luma play near Sira. The mother alien rested against him, her soft breath warm against his arm. He thought about the journey, the uncertainty, the danger. The bond that had formed on, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. In the universe full of unknowns, they had created a life together. A family that survived, thrived, and trusted one another. Alex knew challenges would continue to come. Kylara was a wild planet, unpredictable and dangerous. Yet he also knew that with Sira and Luma by his side, no obstacle would seem insurmountable. They had become more than companions. They were his family, his responsibility, and his joy. As he watched the twin moons rise, reflecting on the rocky plains, Alex whispered once again, "This time with certainty, you are home. And so am I." The mother alien rested her head lightly on his shoulder. Luma nestled against them both, and in that quiet moment, the bonds they had forged were stronger than fear, stronger than loneliness, and stronger than the wildest storms of Kylara, in a universe filled with danger and uncertainty. The smallest acts of courage and kindness had created a family that would endure. Alex, Sira, and Luma had discovered something rare.